I've noticed something in America. When a white person commits a crime in general, and I'm speaking very general here, but when a white person commits a crime, the other white people tend to look at it very differently, right? They don't say, "Oh, he did something wrong." They say there's something wrong with him. Other populations generally don't do that, at least as much. This is not biology and it's not racial destiny. It's nothing like that. When a white person commits a crime, white people look at this as a moral flaw. But it's a character flaw for most white people in general. And we're going to get into that. But when people of color commit a crime, their communities generally look at them and say, you know what? He's not a bad person. He just did something wrong. There's a key difference here, a lot of key differences. And I'm going to talk about it from a real perspective. You see, minority class, particularly people of color, have been dealing with the law, the police, the courts, probation officers, bail bondsmen, failed system for years. But it's not just people of color, it's poor people. They've been dealing with these criminal elements, judicial elements for many years. They've been dealing with oppression for many years. They've come to realize that the system works against them more than it helps them. Okay? But white people still look at it like there's something wrong with that son of a bitch. So the middle class white people, okay, the suburban white people, the rural country people, they see somebody commits a crime. They view this white person as morally flawed, trash, evil, rotten. He has all sorts of things wrong with him, right? Maybe they say bad blood, or they say that he was raised wrong, okay? Respectability culture depends on this thing called separation. Because in the respectability culture of most white Americans, middle class white Americans, respectability basically means that you're saying this person is not one of us. This person is different than we are. This protects the white community from having to deal with harder questions. Things like, where did we fail? Where did the system fail? Where did society fail? White people don't like to ask these kind of questions, but white people are running government. You see, if a person was born, white people will say this, if he was born rotten, nobody missed the warning signs of this, right? If he was always evil, right, then the family, the church, the school, the neighborhood, the culture, all this other stuff couldn't be blamed. They could just walk away scot free, no questions asked. And when a white person gets arrested, you believe instantly how quick everybody becomes a damn forensic psychologist. Everybody. I mean, the minute somebody gets arrested, Aunt Bessie down at the Baptist church, sitting over her casserole and potato salad, is analyzing every single thing about this person's behavior. And that's the wrong way of looking at it. But this is how white people look at it. Now, communities with more direct exposure to things like the police, bail bonds, uh, probation, public defenders' offices, prisons, all this stuff, they often see offenders as human beings, not abstractions like white people do. White people generally see a convict or a prisoner as some sort of abstraction. And that doesn't mean that they're excusing the crime and that they're just doing away with the punishment. It just means that they mistrust the machinery of the justice system as it is built. They've seen people who are overcharged. They've seen people who are underdefended. They've dealt with jails before trial, when you can't get out, for months and months and months and months. They've been dealt for years with being swallowed up by the bureaucracy of the legal system. They know that someone can do wrong, and they know that someone can still come home and be, for the most part, completely forgiven. White people don't necessarily see it that way. So you see, if the justice system, and let me put it to you like this in pretty simple terms, right? If the justice system to you has only ever been something that you watched on television or that you saw from afar or that you believe can still be trusted in every sort of way, and you can trust them like, the great referee of society, right? If that's really all you know about the judicial system, you've got a hard way to go. I mean, if you believe that the system as it is puts its foot on your neck and it drives a pile into your ass, and you learn to ask the right questions, and you learn to see this from a very different perspective than the traditional white family, then you start to see the real problems. And white people generally don't like to deal with the real problems, especially when it comes to the neighborhood, to the family, to the school, to the things that they can control. Let me say it like this: distance from the system makes punishment clean. Proximity to the system makes punishment much more complicated. And that's the interesting perspective here. If you do not personally know people who have been incarcerated, people who have been really deeply touched by the system, people who have been abused by the system. I mean, minor criminals staying for a year behind bars because they can't afford bail for a minor theft charge or something like this. If you don't know those people and you don't look at those people as sons, daughters, nieces, nephews, whatever, then you're only looking at the crime that they commit and saying, God, this person must be a horrible human being. That's not always the case. I'll tell you this: a mugshot looks completely different when that mugshot is somebody that sits across from you at the dinner table and has sat across the dinner table from you for 20 years.